We're live.
Oh
What's
man,
up, y'all?
look at that live.
We are flat out live right now. Let's get it shared.
Mm-hmm.
Man,
Share to everybody in there.
fun fact. Did you know this, man?
Mm.
4 years ago today,
Mm-hmm.
we announced the Catch Up podcast.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy. It
Four,
is. It is crazy.
4 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So yeah, 4 years ago today, we announced the Catch Up podcast. What a
Mm-hmm.
ride it's been since then,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah. And our first podcast was on October 15th. Crazy.
Crazy. I know. It's wild. It's wild. It's crazy to think it's been 4 years. And the amount of things that we've done in that time has been awesome. Of course, we weren't affected by the pandemic. We didn't have to slow down or anything like that because of the pandemic,
Mm-hmm.
because we've always done it this way, except for the video. The video edition is new,
Yeah, it's
but
relatively new. Yeah.
it's relatively new. But, yeah, we have always done this from a distance. And I don't know. It's crazy the interviews that we've gotten.
Mm-hmm.
The big ones, like when I spoke to Alan Bestwick, a world famous sports broadcaster. There were others that were people we've known for a long time, but we didn't know them like we thought we did. We got to
Yeah.
learn a whole lot more about them. That was awesome. There was so much. There was really so much that we've done. Um, so we're thankful for that. We're thankful for all of you who are on the live stream right now, all of you who are streaming us right now. I don't know
Mm-hmm.
why this angle makes me look like I got five head and really blacked out eyes, but dude, it looks like I just set a piece of hair on top of my head right here. So we're going to go right into the discussion this week. Thank you, camera, for
Mhm.
zooming in right when I said that, by the way.
Yeah, perfect timing right there.
Yeah. So we are, of course, live streaming on Facebook, live streaming on YouTube. If you're
Mm-hmm.
listening on the audio version, it's one of the three best ways that you can support us and what we're doing. So, number one, jump on the Facebook live stream or the YouTube live stream. You can discuss our topics with us in real time as we have them. Number two, leave us a rating and review. Let us know how we're doing. It will tell the algorithm that people are reacting to the shows, and it'll help us learn what we're doing well or what we can improve upon. And number three, if you want to support us monetarily, go on our shop site over on Etsy. It's linked wherever you're listening to or watching this podcast, and you can get a whole bunch of merch, a whole bunch of apparel, all in one place. So, with that said, we are having a quick one today.
Mm-hmm.
We both have things we have to do um, right after this on this Thursday night, but we still wanted to maintain our Thursday night lives. So,
Mm-hmm.
man, the first thing I want to talk about is a trend that no doubt is not new in sports, but it is coming to a head more and more um, in the past couple of weeks. And here's what I'm looking at. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Number one is the Tua Tagovailoa. I think I nailed that for once. Uh, Incident. So, if you're not
Mm-hmm.
familiar with this, he's quarterback for the Miami Dolphins. The Dolphins had a miraculous start to the season, large part because of him. And he has long been heralded as a top prospect, but was it enough to overcome what the Miami Dolphins have been for most of our adult lives, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so here's the thing: in the past, yeah, they've lost two games in a row. During those two games, Tua has not played. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
and here's why. So first of all, I can't show it to you because it's NFL footage, and we would definitely be copyright. So I'm gonna spell it out for you. The first of the two incidents, he was wrapped up, sacked, brought down, his head snapped back. Okay.
Mm.
And it looked like it hurt. It didn't look anything extraordinary, but definitely looked like it hurt.
Yeah.
He got up, tried to walk back to the line of scrimmage, fell down to the ground, tripped over his own feet, fell to the ground.
Mm.
Um, they took him to the sideline. I think they actually took him inside the stadium to check him out, but let him come back, finish the game. They said it was his spine. They said his back was hurting.
Mm.
Um, and that's what caused him to lose his balance. He's otherwise fine. This is what the team said. Okay. Now, other than that, they say he's doing okay. No concussion like symptoms because when you're on concussion protocol, you have to sit out and be checked a certain amount of times.
Yep.
Um, and I think, if I remember right, in NFL protocol, you have to wait 5 days um, to get before you can be checked again. Well, the thing about this is, this was a Sunday game. They played a Thursday game, so it wouldn't be 5 days. They would normally wait till Friday, check this person again. So Tua, if they put him on concussion protocol, he would have had to sit out for that Thursday game.
Mm-hmm.
Miami hasn't had success like this for a while. They're kind of tearing it up with him. All right. So um, then that next game he plays, and the exact same thing happens, except it's way worse. Gets wrapped up, head snaps back, hits the ground, and they move off of him. And he moves for a second, but then locks up like this, and his hands go like this. You can see it on the screen. Okay.
Oh, that's bad.
That's really bad. That is a telltale sign of a impact to your brain, you know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, and there are things that um, I've seen being a racing fan. I actually watched this crash that happened at Texas in 2003 in IndyCar. I
Mm-hmm.
actually remember this. I remember watching this on TV. This guy collided with another car. It was like 12 laps to go. He went up, hit the catch fence, and it ripped everything off his car. It split the engine off of the chassis,
Oh my gosh.
and it sent his car spin around like a Beyblade on the track, man. And um, it is the highest recorded G force for a race car driver that they survived.
It's cr-
214 G's. Over 100 can kill you, right?
yeah,
But he quit his racing career after that crash. This driver did.
I figured.
Um,
I
yeah,
would.
yeah. But see, he knew, and who knows? I don't know how he's doing now. Who knows what impacts that had on him? But he wasn't going to risk another thing like that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, so Tua, hasn't played since. There's been a lot of scrutiny on the Dolphins organization. They've lost both of the games since he set out.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but that's on them.
Yeah,
That is on them.
exactly.
So, it really kind of just brings up a discussion of, well, now the NFL immediately implemented new concussion protocols. And really, they're kind of, if I'm not mistaken, redundant with what was already there.
Mm.
They tried to cover their butts by saying it was not made clear that dizziness, right, is a sign of concussion symptoms, which is a total BS lie, dude. That's like the first symptom of concussion, you know?
Exactly. It's the easiest one to spot.
Yeah, absolutely. And so Tua, he went to the hospital after that happened to him, the second one.
Mm-hmm.
He ended up traveling home with the team the next day. So presumably he's fine. He's not played yet, but presumably he's okay. But what's that going to look like 10, 15, 20 years down the line, right?
Yep, exactly. Because yeah, some of those injuries only manifest after a little while.
Mhm.
I mean, I know we've heard of you know previous NFL players suffering from like or having a higher rate of suffering from dementia at a essentially earlier age than
Yeah.
most, as well as Alzheimer's and stuff. So, who knows how that is going to affect his quality of life, right? And plus, there's also some of the subtle things, right? It's just there could be an increase of cognitive like slowing down. Um, and so it's surprising, right, that they are so, and I don't know, maybe there are other factors that we don't know, but it's surprising to think that they would risk this with one of their players that, I mean, you can already tell are they're incredibly valuable to the team,
Yeah.
and you could be ending his career super early just when you're really starting to get some momentum, right? So it's
Yeah.
just, you would think that you'd want to stay on the safe side, like, hey,
Yes.
let's have you miss a few games or whatever like that. Um, as long as you won't be out for the rest of the season, that's all that matters.
Yeah. No, I completely agree, man. And the thing about it too, um, you know, would they have done that with the second string defensive tackle? Probably not. You
Mm-hmm.
know,
True.
because Tua was bringing them wins. Tua was bringing them notoriety. Tua was bringing them income. That to me is where the red flag is, the major red flag. They put this man's life at risk, his wellness at risk for their own gain. That's all it is. He has a responsibility too to say, "Hey, I'm not good enough to play this game." But who knows? Who's to say? I'm not going to speculate, but we don't know what that conversation looked like behind the scenes either.
Yeah, exactly,
We
exactly.
don't.
And then you also have the thought process of, you're expecting someone, if he did have a concussion, right, which there's a higher likelihood that he probably did, at least after the first time. Um, you're expecting a person who has a concussion to be thinking clear enough to say, yeah, I know I'm fine.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
Like,
they're athletes, they're competitors. Of course, they're going to try to say they're fine. You know.
exactly. Yeah, they're going to try their best to make sure that they are always available for the game. They don't want to let their team down. I mean, they also have families, right? They don't want to let their families down. So it's just, yeah, of course they're going to push.
Yeah. No doubt. Well, and the other thing, so you know, so they have again changed their concussion protocols, made them more strict. Now they've gone overboard, and this is a bit of an overreaction. Roughing the passer calls at the slightest things, and that
Mm,
this is what bothers me. Is the
mm-hmm.
NFL pretending they didn't know? No one stepped in because they didn't know that that was a sign of concussion from Tua. But then now we're gonna, for the sake of optics, make it look like we're really doing something now. You
Yep,
know,
exactly. It's,
and
it's a fully reactive plan instead of
yeah,
proactive.
because you didn't have that with any other position. It was just quarterbacks, and that to me is crazy. And it's
Mm-hmm.
crazy and just sad. And so there are some other ones I wanted to touch on too. Um, One of them is also concussion related. This is in the world of motorsports. So in NASCAR, they have these new cars this year, new chassis, to base the car designs off of.
Mm-hmm.
And I noticed early on that these cars, they're tough. They're incredibly tough. I've seen cars hit the wall, back into the wall, even nose into the wall on an oval track going 140, 130 miles an hour and still be able to finish the race and finish strong too. It's insane. But the thing I noticed, most motorsports, they have cars that break away. So you hit the wall and pieces come off. The pieces aren't just, this is actually a testament to that. They don't have to come off. This is clearly the evidence of that. But they do because it dissipates the energy. It's a physics thing.
Yep, just
The way
like regular cars. It's something that kind of trickled down to regular cars in some ways, but yeah.
Absolutely. No, absolutely right. And that is why people are like, oh, new cars aren't as tough as old ones are. That's to protect you.
Mm-hmm.
That's to
Mm-hmm.
protect you.
And the overall frame is technically tougher. It's just the bits that you see most of the time are the weaker points. But
Yes.
again, like you said, it's to dissipate the actual impact.
Yeah, absolutely. And so these drivers are hitting these walls, and again, these cars aren't breaking away. And so you've had Kurt Busch midway through the season. I mean, he's done this. I think he's the last driver in the field that's driven in Cup since the '90s.
Mm.
Yeah, I think he entered Cup in 1999. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and he's like 45 or so. He's going to retire at the end of this year, and he hasn't raced since I think July because he had a concussion.
Mm.
Um, at one point, you had three drivers that were all out at the same race during the same race due to concussions. One of them was in the NASCAR playoffs, and he got eliminated because he couldn't race due to a concussion. And this is due to the car designs. This is due to the designs that not the teams, but the initial chassis that NASCAR approved. And they've known this is a risk. There have been other issues too, where just a couple weeks ago, one of the drivers, his uh, there was a buildup of rubber that got caught in the wheel well, caught on fire, and the fire came in through the dash. No
That's
part of that
crazy.
no part of that should ever happen, especially the coming through the dash part. That's not supposed to happen.
Yeah.
But they've been reluctant to admit their faults. They are preparing fixes, but they're coming slow.
Mm-hmm.
And again, this goes back to a money thing. You know, this is what I'm saying. This is why I'm bringing this up, right? And it's sad because you put these people's mental health at risk with the concussions, but their
Yep.
lives. I mean, fire is not anything to play around with.
Lives and livelihood, because that's the thing, right? If you don't have really good protocols, these people who are in these very, physically demanding sports are have an have essentially the opportunity. It sounds weird to say opportunity, but there could be the possibility of them ending their career prematurely because of these these protocols that are just very lackadaisical.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is what's happening in one driver's case, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the thing I know that I've noticed, and that is, well, there's a conspiracy theory right now. So one of these guys has been complaining about it. His
Mm-hmm.
name's Kevin Harvick. He's been around a long time in NASCAR,
Mm-hmm.
and he has been absolutely vocal against NASCAR, against these new cars, against how they're putting people at risk. And I forget what he said, but it was the week that he said something. The next race, um, at the end of each race, there's two cars inspected by NASCAR to make sure they met rules at the end of
Yep.
each race. They're all inspected before the race, but there are two after.
Mm-hmm.
One is the winner, and the other is one randomly selected.
Okay.
And Kevin Harvick was randomly selected, and
Mm.
then he failed inspection,
Huh.
and he got a really hefty penalty. It was like a $50,000 fine, points docked. His crew chief was suspended for 4 races. Now that was consistent with another penalty that came up earlier in the year, but
Mm-hmm.
my question is, why was he the one randomly selected? Does not seem very coincidental. And
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately, NASCAR over their 70-year history has a history of doing stuff like that. you know,
Mm-hmm.
there used to be a penalty that was called actions detrimental to stock car racing. And anytime that you would speak out against NASCAR, whether you were justified or not, you'd get penalized for that. Yeah.
See, that doesn't make any sense, especially when a lot of times it's the people who are speaking out about it are people who are having to deal with the issues, right? Like these are the people who are literally necessary for the sport to exist. And yet you're turning a blind eye to them. And in some cases, you are penalizing them for just trying to speak out for their well being or in the well being of their really the people that they work with.
Yeah. Well, that, yes. And that is really where I want to go with this, to put a bow on it. And one more thing, actually, that I want to mention. Um, in Formula One, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, we talked about this a while ago. The controversial end to last season. with a bending of the rules that essentially, long story short, gave Max Verstappen with Red Bull the drivers' championship in the final corner or the final lap of the final race
Yep.
over Lewis Hamilton.
Yep.
The there was a budget cap newly introduced last year in F1, and it has just come out that Red Bull exceeded the budget cap.
Mm,
Yeah,
of course.
of course. They're first to cast the stones, but they always play innocence, and that's
Mm-hmm.
just having watched for so long. But they broke the budget cap, and this is a big pivotal moment because there are penalties. There's a list of options that could penalize them for breaking the budget cap.
Mm-hmm.
Among those penalties includes a deduction of drivers and manufacturers points, which if they do that would mean Lewis Hamilton won the championship last year.
Mm.
Big cataclysmic event that would
Yep.
be, right?
Yeah.
Chances are they're not going to do that. But if they don't do that, that would basically take the teeth off of the budget cap, and people will be like, well, I guess I'm just going to exceed it then, because if the penalty is minimal, why wouldn't I? You know?
Exactly. And it also exposes them too. Um, so it's, yeah, they're in a hard position, but it's surprising that we're even in this position in the first place, right?
Mm, yeah. Well, and that's the thing. So I would bet money they're not going to take drivers' points away because there is so much money in Red Bull and their brand and what they bring to Formula One. And so this is really why I wanted to bring this up. I think that these are all high profile examples because they're all in popular sports, and they really like tell a tale to me of what each of us can deal with in our daily lives, in our
Yep.
professional lives, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the gross negligence of the people who are essentially supposed to be overseers and in some ways protectors of of their workers.
Yes. Yeah. And that's right. So like I don't know. I think what's enraging about it is two things. Now, in the case of Red Bull and F1, that's just cheating, that's just money.
Yeah.
But in the case of the other two, you are putting people's well-being at risk for your own profit.
Mm-hmm.
That's one frustrating thing. But then the other is this is relatable for so many of us, right?
Yep.
Either being put at risk for your health, um, you know, yeah, whether it's working crazy hours because you're the guy, and they're not going to ask anybody else, right?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I hesitate to give examples, but just times I've had to work dayside shifts when I worked in the news, and then immediately was that day found out that I would have to go home, sleep 4 hours, come back, work overnight, and
Mm-hmm.
then somehow switch back to a dayside shift the following day, right?
Yep.
Um, but getting manipulated for that, having your health and well-being put at risk, but also knowing that the rules can and will be bent depending on who you are.
Yep.
I think that's what's infuriating about it. And it's really kind of a microcosm of what we see, what each of us, everyone experiences that in life, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, everybody does, but it's I feel like it's so different too when it comes to like, these big sports like that because it's like where else do you go, right? Where else do you go if you as opposed to like a job, right? Or I should say most people's careers, right? They have an opportunity to move to different companies, to different organizations to be able to um still, do whatever the job that they have or um and but also get better treatment where as these bigger places and I guess in some ways bigger corporations are kind of fall into the same vein but uh, these uh, these people who are in these like the NFL the NBA F1 they don't have another place to go and if they do jump into the other spot it's at a much lower position, and they're losing money at that point
Yeah.
just to be safer. And sometimes it doesn't even guarantee them to be in safer. It may actually mean that they're going to go into even more of a riskier spot. So it's crazy how much sometimes these corporations and these entities, what they do to essentially increase profit at the risk of their own people, and they just treat people as though they're expendable.
Yep.
It's just
It's absolutely right, man. Well, and um, I think one thing that is you look back on the NFL situation, and not even that long ago when they started penalizing heavy hits, harder late hits, harder
mm-hmm.
shoves out of bounds, right? And roughing the passer calls, things like that. All the people that were like, "Oh, they're sissifying the sport and this and that." You remember that?
Yep, I
And
remember
it's
that.
like, man, and that wasn't even that long ago. And clearly, by what happened with Tua, there's still a lot of conversion to do. There's still a lot of explanation and understanding to share as to why that's not okay. Why we have to protect these people, right?
Yep, exactly.
And what's crazy, people say like they watch racing for the crashes, they watch NFL for the hits.
Mm-hmm.
I don't do either of those things. I love watching the NFL, but I love watching a well executed drive on offense beating the defense. I love watching the defense stop the offense in a critical fourth down territory, right? And keep
Yep.
them from progressing forward. I love watching the strategy of it. And to dumb it down to the point of the hot, basically Roman Coliseum type action,
Mm-hmm.
you know, is just essentially stripping away the human aspect of it all, you know,
Mm-hmm.
because I guarantee most people that do that, if they were in that situation, they would wet themselves. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
they would. They really would.
Yeah. So, no, man, I just wanted to come on here and talk about that for a little bit. It's frustrating for me. It's frustrating for a lot of people I know. And, just seeing these kind of things play out in different capacities across different sports. Like I said, it's something that's relatable for us, unfortunately. So,
Yeah,
just wanted to
it
jump
is.
on here real quick and talk about that. I know we got things we got to do, people we got to see. So, we're going to bounce off here. This was a quick Thursday Night Live. This was a quick episode of the Catch Up
Mm.
Podcast. But let us know
Mm-hmm.
what you think. Leave a rating and review. Let us know in the comments. And let us know what you want to hear us talk about in future upcoming episodes.
Yeah,
We would love to
exactly.
know what has you talking, what's trending in your world. Um,
We love your
and
suggestions.
yeah, we're all open to suggestions. And yeah, so let us know on that. If you want to support us monetarily, go to our shop. It's linked in wherever you're watching. And that's it, man. So thank you guys for catching up with us. We'll catch up with you next week.
Oh man.